Well, I'm back again. Got Christmas over with. Still got my decorations up. And they're going to stay up for a while because it takes so long for me to get all this stuff out. I'm going to enjoy it. I'll have them down by Valentine's Day, I'm sure. Because it's going to take that long to get it all put away. But I like my Christmas decorations and I like to put them up. But this year nobody got to see them except me. But that's okay. First I want to show you what my daughter gave me for Christmas. There were just the three of us here Christmas Day. They came, we had quiche. We didn't have turkey and dressing. We had quiche and salad and a dessert. And that's what we wanted. I made quiche for the first time. Turned out pretty good. They said it was good and I thought it was good. So anyway, let's see, where was I headed? A Christmas present. Now, you've seen my videos about my collections, and one of those collections happened to be Fostoria, the American pattern. I've got quite a few pieces now. It's something my older sister started collecting back in the 1950s, and she's gone now. I collect it. So my daughter knew I was looking for the square cake stand. Now, any of you know anything about Fostoria American, you know that it is what my daughter called the Holy Grail. So I'd been saying that's the one piece I'd like to have, but kind of expensive if you can find one. Well, she just happened to find one a week ago. She looked up in a booth. She has a booth in an antique mall, and she was working in her booth, and she turns around. She looks up at a booth across the aisle from her, and this is what she saw. The square Fostoria American cake stand. Now you have to admit that's a beauty. And it's the kind of thing people like me lust after. And I've wanted it for a long, long time, but never said much about it until this year, because there are a lot of ladies looking for this cake stand too. We've gathered all of the other pieces, the pretty pitchers, the plates, the bowls, there's all sorts of dishes. There are ashtrays, anything you can name in this pattern. But this is what my daughter referred to as the Holy Grail. And she bought it. She gave it to me and I was shocked. I was so surprised. And I just didn't know what to say. So I wanted you to see this. And if you collect Fostoria American, this is the piece you want to own. Now, I know the rest of you have had the same problem we've had here in my town. One thing about it, talking about the weather this week, we all can talk about the same thing. Never seen a year when it got this cold across the country. Even the people in Florida and South Carolina were freezing. And I told my friend, I said, just run out to a Goodwill store and find you a good coat. It won't cost you more than $5, and you're not going to wear it but a few days, and you probably never have to wear it again. So, since our conversation about the snow, the ice, the, let's see, what else? Well, the temperatures, the 0 temperatures. We've all had them this week. So I thought, we'll talk about snow. But I'm going to talk about snow 75 and 80 years ago when I was a little girl. Now, snow back then was a fantastic thing. Oh, gee, we look forward to the snow. Today, we heard all about the planes being grounded. Back then, it was the Greyhound bus that couldn't get through. I remember my mother talking and the neighbors talking about the Greyhound bus can't get through to Corbin. What are people going to do? That was our means of transportation when you traveled. And it was stuck in Knoxville, Tennessee. Wasn't going to be moving anywhere. That was big news. Big news. Now, I'll go back to when we were very small. We each had a pair of mittens, and we wore galoshes. Now I'm telling the young people today, you don't know you've got it made. You've got these beautiful fur-lined boots that you wear, and you wear them even when it doesn't snow. But in those days, you had galoshes. They were rubber boots that came just above the ankle, and they buttoned or buckled on the side, and you wore them over your good shoes to protect your good shoes when it snowed. So we each had our galoshes, and when you got to school, you had to take the galoshes off. They were a pain in the neck. Get those galoshes off and then you had to put them back on in the afternoon when you went home. And it wasn't easy pulling those things up over your shoes. But that's what we wore. Now, when it was too bad to get to school, and that wasn't very often, we walked through 8 and 10 inches of snow to get to school. Everybody walked. My brother was little, very little. I can remember this. And he'd never seen snow before. Oh my God, it was so exciting. He would run to the kitchen, climb up in a chair, and he would plaster his face against that cold, wet window looking out. And he yelled through the house at me, "Pat, come and look." I'm trying to remember exactly how he said it. He said, "Come and look and see the damn snow." Only he said snow. It's snowing. And of course, my mother scolded him, but this was his first time to see snow. Now, my sister was 2 years older than I, and it never got too cold for her, but I was allergic to cold weather. My fingers would freeze, my toes would freeze, and my nose would get so red and runny that I couldn't stay outside more than 15 minutes at a time. Mama wrapped us up in double sweaters, anything she could find to keep us warm, and we had our mittens on, and sometimes we had galoshes. If we didn't have galoshes, she would take Daddy's socks and pull them up over our shoes and up around our leggings. We had leggings. And we would play out in the yard. And the nice thing about it was our yard was big, and from the front yard down the side, it would start out level, and it sloped. Our yard sloped like that till it got to the creek. All the neighborhood kids came to our yard to play in the snow. There was nothing like lying down in the snow and starting to roll, and you roll down the hill until you were covered with snow. There was nothing like it. We didn't have sleds. Very few kids had sleds, and those were the ones that usually they were an only child, and they could have more toys than families where there were several children. But they shared their sleds, and we would go to the next street over. Next street over was, you went down, and when I say down, I'm talking about this is how it went down, crossed the street, went down again, and on down, way down, and then you had to turn a corner. And that was the hard part, getting that sled to go around that corner without going on down into a creek. I remember the time we called it double-decker. There were so many kids at the top of that hill with half a dozen sleds, and they'd take turns. And I remember being on top. When I say on top, there were 3 of us stacked on one sled, and I was number 3. That was the hardest thing in the world, hanging on while that sled went down that long hill and made that turn at the bottom. It was all I could do to stay on top. But oh, what fun it was. I would be outside playing 15 minutes, that was it. My little brother would have his nose stuck up against the window. And when we would come in, our mittens would be soaking wet. Mama would take those mittens, and she would use clothespins and pin them to an old coat hanger. And then she'd hang that coat hanger on the back of a chair and put it up behind the warm morning heater in the living room. And then, since we only had one pair of mittens anyway, she would get some old socks that had the heels, where the heels would wear out. Our socks always had holes in the heels, and we would put on those socks. Those socks would come up to our elbows. They served as mittens while our mittens were drying. Now, those were the days when you had snow cream. Snow cream today is not the same. Snow cream today would be considered unsafe. You didn't know what kind of bacteria, what kind of germ might have collected in the snowflakes. But back then, we'd look out the back window, kitchen window, and on the hillside. Now, I'm not talking about a big tall hill. I'm just talking about the hill in our backyard. The snow would collect, and it would be in big mounds. Mama would give us her, what she called the wash pan. Now, that wash pan was about this big. It's the one she used in the summer when she had her heads of cabbage chopped up and she was making kraut. That was the wash pan. It held a lot of kraut. It would hold a lot of snow. So she'd let us go out, and we'd fill that pan just as full as we could get it with the white snow. But first, we always raked off the top layer. You got that top layer off. You wanted to make sure there was no coal dust or anything in the air that had settled on top of the snow. So by wiping it off, you got the nice, clean, glistening white snow. And we filled that wash pan full, took it in, and Mama already had the milk out, she had the sugar out, she had the vanilla flavoring. And she started making snow cream. We can have our favorite ice cream today, but they don't compare with snow cream. And we didn't even have freezers in those days. You know, you just put it in the refrigerator, but you didn't put it in a freezer, because all we had was a little square box inside the refrigerator that had 2 ice cube trays, those metal ice cube trays. And that's the closest we got to being able to freeze anything. So we ate, and Mama would put the snow cream in the refrigerator. It would last a little while. It would start to get weepy at the bottom. But I don't think there was anything that tasted better to a child than that homemade snow cream. Now, I don't know, school never let out. You went to school sometime. You might get to school and there'd be 12 students in the classroom of maybe 30. That didn't matter. You had class just the same, whether there were 2 there, 20, or 30. And we loved the walk to school, throwing the snowballs. I remember getting hit in the side of the face with a snowball that had been packed down so hard that it was like a rock. It hurt. I had a grudge against that kid till I got through high school. I was going to get him back for hitting me in the face with a snowball. Those things you don't forget. So, we've got New Year's coming up. I don't know if you're looking forward to it or dreading it. And I don't know which way to go either. Everybody, a lot of people have already got their Christmas trees put away and all of their ornaments put away. But I think, gee, I went to so much trouble to put these things out. I'm just going to leave them out for a little while and enjoy them. Why not? So that's what I'm doing. So you can check back with me on Valentine's Day and see if I've still got my Christmas decorations up. And I just might have. So I've had a few experiences with snow. Very unfortunate experiences. 1 or 2 of them I would call a miracle. And that's a story that I would have to tell separate from this. But it had to do with accidents in the snow. But going home, there is no going home now. I am at home, right here, alone. But my daughter lives nearby, and I have a couple of granddaughters close by too. So if I need anything, they're always there to take care of it. I can count on them. I know there was something else I wanted to tell about the snow days, but basically I've pretty well covered it during the childhood. Never owned a sled. That's one of the dreams a kid used to have. Now, a sled means nothing to young people nowadays. When I lived in Louisville, my next door neighbors had one of these big toboggans. You know what a toboggan is? Not the one you put on your head, but the one you ride on. Did you get 2 or 3 people on a toboggan? And they would take their children to Iroquois Park. Iroquois Park there's several parks there, but Iroquois Park was the one where you went round and round and round, all the way till you got top of the mountain. And then you could see out over all of Louisville when you got up there. Well, there was one section, you can imagine the hillside when it got covered with snow. It was like this. And that sled went down. It was a long, long ride, and a scary one at that. I never got to ride on a sled like that, a toboggan, but I was too chicken. I wouldn't get on going to go that far down that hill, and whew, yeah, I was chicken. There are a lot of things I wouldn't do because I was too scared. I envy those kids that didn't have those fears. I had a lot of fears like that. And I missed out on a lot of fun because of those fears. We had one hill in our neighborhood. It went down, and then it did this and went down again. And when it got to the end, it dead end, right in front of Miss Johnson's house. You had to turn left to go on down the hill. And as your sled picked up speed, it was going faster when it got almost to Miss Johnson's house than it was from the top of the hill. I would not get on a sled going down that hill because I knew if we didn't make that curve right there at the dead end, we're going to be sitting in Miss Johnson's living room. And I didn't think Miss Johnson was going to like that very much. So no, I wouldn't get on the sled going down Van Dorn Hill. It was the biggie. But playing in the snow in those days, not like it is today. The children aren't allowed out in the bad weather. It didn't bother us as long as our fingers didn't get numb and our toes didn't get numb. We didn't get frostbite. We were right out there throwing the snowballs, rolling down the hill. Mama wrapped us up so much we looked like the kid in the Christmas Story. The little brother in his pink snowsuit when he was waddling down the street. He could hardly walk and his arms out like this. Yeah, that's how we looked too when by the time Mama got through with us. She made sure we were well equipped to go out in the cold weather. Now we're getting ready for the New Year, and I can tell you right now, my New Year's Eve's gonna be just like everyone's been for the last so many years. I'll sit on the couch and I'll turn on the TV at 11:45 and wait for the ball to fall in Times Square. Sometimes I fall asleep about 2 minutes before 12. Yeah, that's me. I'm waiting for the ball to fall and I fall asleep. Or I'm sitting glued to the screen and I'm trying to see that, where is the ball? It's up there somewhere, and they've described what it's made of, and I can't imagine what that would have cost. But it's supposed to be so beautiful. I'm looking, there are lights everywhere, and I'm thinking, where is it? I can't see it. And by the time I see that ball, it's already to the ground. I didn't get to see it come all the way down. It's there already. So I turn off TV and I go to bed and I'm ready for the new year. This past year hasn't been that great for many people, for our whole country. There's nothing good you can say. And all we can do, folks, is pray. Pray that things will get better. Pray that the Lord is watching over all of us. He cares for us. And we should care for each other. So, I'm just keeping my fingers crossed, hoping that things go well for every family and for the homeless. I worried about the homeless all this past week. What were they doing when it was 2 degrees below zero? What do you do for shelter? And yet, I didn't do anything. I didn't know what to do. And I'm not equipped to take in strange people in my home because I don't have the room or the ability to take care of them. I regret that. So, I hope the new year brings good things to you and your family. And I'm going to keep telling you some stories. This one wasn't as good as I hoped it would be. Now I remember what my little brother said. He ran in the kitchen, jumped up in the chair, turned around and yelled, "Hey, Pat, come and look at it Thnow." He couldn't talk plain. He was still so young, but he was so excited. Snow was exciting when I was a child. We looked forward to it, and we took advantage of every minute we could play in the snow. And those are good memories. I hope you have good memories like that too. And I hope you have a good New Year. So I'm going to let you go now, and I'm going to go fix me something to eat with a couple bites of leftovers and my wonderful dessert that I prepared. And they ate about 2 bites of it, and I'm eating the rest. And you know what it's doing? It's raising my blood sugar. Okay, it'll go away. You take care and enjoy your families and your friends. Take advantage of anything and everything that you can. Be happy. That's all we want, is to be happy. Thank you. Going to cut you off now.